In this part of our course, we'll make this element. It's the same figure that's placed on the bottom of the cover we're now making. Switch to the ellipse tool, hold Ctrl and draw a proportional circle. Now draw a rectangle on top of the circle. Select the rectangle, go to Arrange menu and click on Convert to Curves. Switch to Shape tool and modify this shape. Select both figures and align them vertically. Now we'll duplicate this figure and wrap the circle with it. We already know how the Rotate tool works. This time we'll use a different technique. Let's activate the Snap to Object option. Click on the rectangle again, show the rotation point and handles. Place the rotation point at the centre of the circle. Now drag the rotation handle. Keep holding the left button and press the right button at the same time. Now, repeat this action by pressing Ctrl D. Keep pressing this shortcut until the circle is completely wrapped with the figures. Because the angle we've set is made manually, the figure is not equally distributed. Let's try to repeat this action. This time we'll try to position the figure in a slightly different way. If we want to be really specific, we can always use the Rotate option. Go to Arrange menu, then Transformations and click on Rotate. Change the rotation angle to 20 degrees and click on Apply. Now press Ctrl D to duplicate the figure and place the copies around the circle. Select the circle and press the plus key to duplicate it. Hold Shift and upscale the new figure. Duplicate the figure again. Hold Shift and upscale it. Repeat this action a few more times. When we scale the circle with Shift, its centre stays in one place. Let's say that this part of our figure is ready. Select all figures. Now, click on the group icon and downscale this figure. Draw a rectangle and convert it to curves. We can do that by clicking on this icon, accessing the Arrange menu, or by pressing Ctrl Q. Switch to the Shape tool and form the rectangle so it will look like the original shape. If we want to move the node over a straight line, we need to hold Ctrl while moving it. Select the figure and duplicate it by pressing the plus key on the numeric keypad. Click on the Mirror horizontally icon. Because the Snap to Objects option is active, we can easily place the duplicated figure right next to the original one. Select both figures and weld them. So, now we have two objects, group of figures and a standalone figure. Select both these objects and we'll align them. We don't have to worry about the grouped object. The program will treat it as one figure. Align the figures vertically. Let's move this figure a little closer. Now select both figures and group them. How can we now select only one part of this group? Just hold Ctrl and click on this arrow figure. So when we hold Ctrl, we can select one object from the group. Let's change its colour to pink. Now select this object and downscale it. Position it at the bottom right of the page. Now, duplicate this figure by pressing the plus key on the numeric keypad. Move the copied figure to the bottom left corner and mirror it. Now, select both figures and align them vertically. We can also do that by just pressing the E key. So E aligns figures vertically and C aligns figures horizontally. Of course, I'm reading these options backwards because the names are referring to X and Y axis. So I'm referring to actual action and not the name. So these elements are ready. Press Shift and F4 Click twice on the rectangle tool. A rectangle as big as our page was created automatically. Change the colour of this rectangle to blue and delete its outline. Switch to the ellipse tool and draw a circle at the centre of the page. Select the circle and the rectangle and align them vertically. Now click on the combine icon. As you can see, the circle cut a hole in our rectangle. We'll now convert this shape into a bitmap. Place a photo under it and apply a nice blur effect. Switch to rectangle tool and draw another rectangle. Make it bigger than the page. This rectangle is now placed at the very top. How can we select the figures underneath it? When we draw a selection box, all figures are selected. When we try to click on a figure, we select the rectangle itself. To select the figure placed under the rectangle, we need to hold Alt and click on the figure we want to select. So we selected the blue rectangle. Hold Shift and add the biggest rectangle to the selection. Set the outline of both figures to none. We need this bigger rectangle, so there can be more space for the blur effect. Now, we'll convert this object to a bitmap. Go to Bitmaps menu and click on Convert to Bitmap. Leave all options as default. Don't deactivate it. As you can see, this figure will have a 57.5 megabytes after the conversion. Click on the OK button. Now that we've converted this project to bitmap, all effects are active. These effects are also available in Photo Paint. We're not using Photo Paint because we're using other software, Photoshop. But for now, effects from Bitmaps menu will be enough for us. Go to Bitmaps menu, then Blur, and click on Gaussian Blur. When we click on these icons right here, we can switch through different preview modes. We can scroll this preview by dragging the contents of this window. Click on the lock icon. This way the effects we set here will be automatically applied to our figure. The blur effect is now set to 41 pixels. I think that's enough for us. Click on the OK button. As you can see, the blur effect was applied to our figure. But there's a slight problem. If we scale this figure now, the blur effect will be inside the page. It's because the blur effect is applied on both sides. 40 pixels means that there are 20 pixels of blurred area on each side of our figure. So one of the options is to just hold Shift and upscale this figure, then create a rectangular clipping mask for it. Now we'll import a photo into our document. Go to File menu and click on Import. Choose a random photo. Click twice on the photo you've chosen. Now I'll place this photo under the blue figure. Select the photo, go to Arrange menu, then Order and click to back of the page. So this element of our project is now ready. Move the photo and the blue figure to the side. Click twice on the rectangle tool icon. Create a rectangle which is as big as our page. Select the rectangle and set its outline to none. Now we'll convert this figure into an empty power clip frame. Go to the Effects menu, then Power Clip and click on Create Empty Power Clip Frame. Select the photo and the blue figure and place them in the empty frame. Now we can position the contents of the frame manually, or use one of the presets. Well, let's use the Center Contents preset. Let's click on the Edit Power Clip frame. Position the figure correctly. Make the blurred edges go outside the frame. Exit this mode by clicking the little icon under the frame. So that's how we can do this in Corel. Let's talk about one more thing. Go inside the frame and select the blue figure. We'll apply a noise effect to it. This will make our figure more interesting to look at. Go to Bitmaps menu, then Noise, and click on Add Noise. Activate the preview and change the level of noise to 68. Click OK to apply this effect to our figure. Now we'll create the text. Switch to the text tool, click once on an empty space and write Majorca. Now move this text under the photo. Change the outline colour of the text to white. To do that, click on white colour with the right mouse button. Now we'll apply a shadow to our text. Switch to the Drop Shadow tool, click on the text, move your cursor to the left and release the mouse button. Now we can play with the drop shadow options which are present on the property bar. Try to move the little scroll bar. As you can see, it regulates the strength of the shadow. We can also change it here on the property bar. By changing it, we can make the shadow more or less visible. When we change this value, the angle of the shadow changes. To make the shadow return to its default position, change this value to 0. This value changes the shadow's exposure. Play with it for a while to get the best effect. So we need to just experiment with these options and observe how they affect this shadow. This shadow is connected with the text. So when we select this figure with the selection box, the property bar will automatically be filled with shadow options. We can separate shadow from figure, but we'll lose the ability to edit the effect. Select the figure and go to Arrange menu and click on Break Drop Shadow Group Apart. Now the shadow is a standalone figure, separated from the text, and we can't edit it anymore. Press Ctrl Z to undo the changes. Press Shift and F4. Now we'll learn how to make such a blur effect in Photoshop. So, now we'll make this element in Photoshop. We could just make the whole thing in Photoshop, but we'll make only the photo effect. Click twice on the rectangle tool icon. Change the colour of this rectangle to dark blue and set its outline to none. Now, we'll convert this figure into bitmap. Go to Bitmaps menu and click on Convert to Bitmap option. Leave all options as default and click OK. Now we'll apply the noise effect to this element. Go to Bitmaps menu, then Noise, and click on Add Noise. Activate the preview. Let's say that we'll leave it like this. Click OK. Now we'll switch to Photoshop and edit the photo. Switch to Photoshop, go to File menu, click on Open and open a random photo. Click with the right mouse button on Marquee Tools and select the elliptical marquee tool. The feather is set to 0. As you remember, the feather option regulates how fast the edge of our picture will fade into transparency. So, before we make a selection, we need to change the feather value. When we draw a selection, and then want to change the feather value, it wouldn't work. Change the feather value to 20 pixels. Draw an elliptic selection. Let's now try to delete the selected area. Press delete. Here we can choose the foreground colour, blue, or background colour, white. Let's select the foreground colour. As you can see, the selection was filled with the foreground colour. Press Ctrl Z. We don't want to fill the selection with this colour. We want to fill the outside area. To do this, we need to inverse our selection. Go to Select menu and click on Inverse. Press the Delete key. Choose the foreground colour and click OK. Go to Select menu and click on Deselect. As you can see, the effect is pretty good. The photo slowly fades into a blue colour, but we don't want it to fade into blue. We want it to fade into transparency. Go to Edit and click on Step Backwards or press Alt-Ctrl Z. So what have we done up until now? Let's do the whole thing again. First, select the elliptical marquee tool. Before we draw a selection, we need to change the feather to 20 pixels. Draw a selection. Go to Select menu and click on Inverse. Now, let's make this selection again. We need to leave some space between the selection and the edge of our photo. The feather effect needs to have some space. So again, select the tool, set the feather and draw a selection. Go to Select menu and click on Inverse. Go to Layers palette. We want to have the transparency instead of colour, so we need to convert the background into a layer. Click twice on the background layer and click OK. The background is now converted into a normal layer, which we can have transparency on. Now just press the Delete key to delete the selected area. Now we can delete the selection. Go to Select menu and click on Deselect. Now we'll save this photo. Go to File menu and click on Save. Save this file in PSD format. PSD is a standard Photoshop format which can support transparency. So these white and grey squares indicated the transparency area. Switch to CorelDraw. Now we'll import the photo into our document. Go to File menu and click on Import. Click twice on our PSD file. Click once on an empty space to import the photo. This way we have a nice effect and it's easier to move and scale this photo. So the background was done in Corel and the photo was done in Photoshop. So that's how we can achieve this effect in two different ways. Let's now learn how we can change the colour of the background figure. Since it's a bitmap, we can't just pick a colour from the colour palette on the right. Select the rectangle, go to Effects menu and, well, as you can see, this element is placed outside the bitmaps menu. This tells us that we can use it for both bitmaps and vector graphics. Go to Effects menu, then Adjust and click on Hue, Saturation, Lightness. To activate the preview, click on this little lock button. Play with Hue scroll bar and observe how the colour of the figure changes. This way, we can change the bitmap colour without losing any of its details. Click OK. Press Ctrl S to save the changes. So our next project is ready. Of course, if we want to make it for an offset print with large amounts of copies, we need to create a bleed limit. Go to Arrange menu, then Transformations and click on Size. Click on the middle left grid point, change the Y value to 11.943 inches. Leave the copies value to 0 and click Apply. So now that the cover is truly ready, press Ctrl S to save the changes.